Favorite teacher? I'd like to throw a little audible in this and say who was the most impactful teacher, because I don't want to break a tie between 10, 15 favorite teachers. So I will go to my college journalism professor, Lou Richardson, who during class one day, she told me to stay after class. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm in trouble. What did I do wrong here? But she proceeded to really convince me and bring out the talent that I did have for writing that I probably didn't know about. And I think just that little conversation after class really set me straight and got me on a path, I think, to journalism. And I will forever be appreciative of her taking the time to really do some one-on-one mentoring and steer me in the right direction.
As far as teachers who really influenced me, there was a professor at the University of Tennessee at Martin in the communications department. He chairs the department now, but he was a professor back then. And his name was Robert Nanny, and still is Robert Nanny. But I was just so impressed with his professionalism, the way he carried himself, just the confidence that he had, but also there was a humility there, and he cared about the people that were in the stories that we covered at the school paper. He was the advisor on the school paper, and he really cared about people that were in the stories. He cared about the community he covered, and I think I picked up on some of that. Along with the nuts and bolts of journalism that he taught me, he really modeled what it meant to be a professional and what it meant to be a journalist, and a good guy, and that really, I think, influenced me, and I'll always appreciate that.
I have been lucky to have a lot of great teachers over the years, but I would say without a doubt the one that's had the most impact on my life, both while he was teaching and then far beyond the classroom, is Marv Bossert. He was my instructor in 2 classes at MSUM, but he was just as dynamic in the classroom as he was on the air every single night in the anchor chair. He pushed you when you needed to be pushed. He guided you. He added humor. He reminded you, despite the fact he had a very serious job and he did serious work every single day. He never took himself too seriously. He was maybe the best storyteller I have ever met, and maybe there was some exaggeration in there too, but it made it a lot of fun. To me, one of the most important things I can do is to carry on the legacy that he started, both at MSUM as an instructor and then here at WDAY too.
I think one of the teachers that had the biggest influence on me was Miss Morris, because in 2nd grade I really still did not know how to read, and I hated reading because it was hard, and I really struggled to read. And she made reading fun and enjoyable and sat me down and was like, hey, you like to draw, so let's draw and tell stories. And she made me fall in love with telling stories, and here I am today.
So in high school, when I was at Fargo South High, there was this program called the Creative Arts Studio, which was open for public school kids to come in and learn art on certain weekdays and weekends. And it was run by Catherine Mulligan, who was an NDSU art professor. But it was great for high school kids because we got to do art that was, a little bit outside the box of what we could do in high school art classes. And she treated us like adults. She treated us like college students, like we were one of her own. So it was great for that. She introduced us to a lot of different techniques and styles, really kind of helped us push the envelope. I won a scholarship to go study in Colorado, like between my junior and senior year, because of her, because of the work that we did together. And she was just a great character. She was a maternal character, but she would also call you out on your crap. She didn't really, she wasn't afraid to swear or things like that. In fact, there was always stories that she was smoking cigars back in the sculpture room while she was making her own art, doing her own things. But she was great because she really did help you figure out what you wanted to do and who you really were. And I'll always remember that.
I have 2 favorite teachers who really impacted me when I was in high school. I had Mrs. Walter and then Mrs. Sedevy, both at Perham High School. They were both English teachers, and I always thought I was going to go into study astrophysics. I wanted to be an astronaut, and my English teachers were always very encouraging of me. I was a bookworm, loved to write, loved to read, and they were always very supportive of everything I wanted to do. But when I was going and figuring out what I was actually going to do with my life, I always kept coming back to English. And, you know, as I've gone into journalism and looked back at how I got here, I often think about how encouraging they were of the talent that I had, but that I just took as just kind of being a bookworm and being kind of a nerd. But it was really what I was passionate about was language and information.
You probably would think that my favorite teacher would have been some science teacher or something like that, or some meteorology person, but actually I would put at the top of my list of great teachers the professor at Iowa State University who taught me the second term of freshman composition. He was an English professor, his name John McCulley, and he instilled in me a confidence in an ability to communicate like no other teacher did. And you know, I had interests in public speaking and in writing as well as in science, but he was really the one who made me self-confident. And a lot of that was his course. He later became a friend, and I took another course from him later on in college, and I would visit his office frequently. And actually, shortly before I graduated, I visited him one last time, and he handed me a 2-volume set of an anthology of English literature, which he probably got free, you know, as a professor. But I treasure that set of it's the Norton Anthology of English Literature, a 2-volume set. Wonderful, wonderful books. Now, we are seeing one of the things that he taught me was that with everything that you write or say, when you're communicating, you need to ask these 3 questions. What do I mean? How do I know? And so what? And that's freshman comp stuff. That's basic stuff. But I don't know, just the way that he instilled that in us made it a mantra. And you know, if you're doing that with every paragraph you write, you're doing a good job of communicating. And I owe that to Dr. McCulley.
Well, my an impactful and honestly favorite teacher would be Sam Neese. Goes back to 1976. I was a sophomore at Fargo South High School, and he was my geometry teacher for a half a year, and that's it. But math may not have been my strong suit before the class, but it turned into a stronger suit because of Sam. So it wasn't a letter grade that I got from Sam, whether it was an A or a C. It was how he impacted me, and not just then, but 10 years later, we're on fishing trips together because of the great outdoors we would shoot for WDAY Sports. And Sam and I, for some reason, got in the same boat, got seated next to each other on the plane, the float plane that would land us. And Sam continued to teach me things. We'd be the 2 guys who would want to clean fish because we would go off by ourselves on the table, clean the fish. He would teach me how to clean a walleye. He would teach me how to clean a northern. He just kept educating me and was in teaching and was in coaching for all the right reasons. I still tell stories about Sam.
Well, many teachers have had an impact on my life. There is no one that had a bigger impact than my kindergarten teacher, who was my mom, Lois Wick. She taught me how to be a lifelong learner, and that's something that remains true today and is one of the best parts of my job. Whether I'm learning about gardening or cryptocurrency or you name it, we're always learning something new today. And we lost my mom this August, and so many students of her students came from across the state to pay their respects. And it was just a reminder of the importance of teachers and what a change they can make in kids' life. So thank you to the teachers out there, and happy Teacher Appreciation Week.